Ladies and gentlemen, on today's episode, we have a killer show for you that ends with a killer deal on one of the best-selling rods of the past 5 to 10 years. It's a deal that's so good, you have to do a double take when you see it, but I promise it is very real. We also tackled the topic of scented soft plastics in this week's fishing poll, and in the mailbag, we discuss rod and reel cleaning, the Tatula X versus the Shimano SLX XT, budget musky setups, and more on today's episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by The Rod Locker. Premium gear and expert advice from a staff you can trust. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. I am very excited for this episode because it combines two of my favorite things, talking about fishing gear and saving a boatload of money. Two of the main pillars of the Tackle Talk Podcast, and we nail both of them today. But before we do, the only reason that we're able to do Tackle Talk at all, but especially this episode, is because of the Rod Locker. And I'm going to skip all of the formalities today here at the top of the show. You guys know that the Rod Locker is my favorite tackle shop. They're a great partner of this show, great pricing, fast shipping, amazing customer service. But today, our entire main portion of the episode and the insane deal that follows that you guys will have access to is solely because of the Rod Locker. This is a deal that you won't find anywhere else on one of the most popular rods of the last decade, and it is solely made possible because of the Rod Locker. So I won't spoil it, but as you get halfway through this episode, it will all make sense to you. And you can probably tell by the title of the episode at least what rod I'm talking about, but the deal itself that we're going to be able to get you on these rods is almost unheard of. So buckle up for a great episode of Tackle Talk that is made possible by the great folks over at the Rod Locker. As always, you can head over to www.rodlocker.com and you can use code TackleTalkApril to save money on every order you make. Rodlocker.com, code TackleTalkApril. Okay, everybody, let's embark on this episode here today. There's not a ton of news to go over from this past week. I mean, we made it through April 1st and the AI slop fest that was April Fools on the internet and the fishing world. Every single brand apparently was on the same group chat and said, hey, let's type one sentence into ChatGPT and make some cringy AI April Fool's picture. My gosh, it was a rough day on the internet. If you were diving into anything and everything fishing, that was all you saw all day long. But other than that, we just had Good Friday and Easter Sunday this past weekend. I know that I don't talk a ton about my faith and religion on this show because we're a fishing show and I get that. But I do hope that everybody got to spend some time with family, open up that Bible, take some time to reflect and appreciate on, what Easter means to so many of us listening. But today, as you heard in the intro, our main portion of this show is going to check two of the core philosophies here at Tackle Talk. We're going to provide you with unbiased information about fishing gear, and we're going to save you a ton of money. So I got you today. Check and check. So let's get into this. Today, we are talking about a rod with a name and a reputation that exceeds its price point. A rod that I have personal long-term experience with, and a rod and a brand for that matter that is very, very rarely discounted. Until today. So that rod that we are talking about is the Shimano Zodius, and specifically the previous generation, or I guess current generation, depending on how you want to look at it, Shimano Zodius. So that's the one that's been on the market since probably about 2020 through early 2026. That rod over 6 years has built a core following of anglers for a few reasons. One, it's a Shimano, and there are people, and I tend to fall into this camp sometimes, that think that Shimano overall is the top dog in the fishing industry when it comes to quality. It's definitely a two-dog race if you want to go between Shimano and Daiwa, and most of the time, I tend to fall into the Shimano camp, even though Daiwa has definitely grown on me, especially the last 2 years, and I now have more Daiwas in my lineup than I have ever before, but Shimano is Shimano, and this rod is Shimano to the bone. Or I guess if we want to speak in rod terms, maybe to the blank, but you get what I'm saying. The second reason why people have fallen in love with this rod is the price point. This rod for years has hit that sweet spot of a high-end rod with high-end features and feel to it at a sub $300 price point. It's floated anywhere from $250 to $280, maybe even $290 over the years, depending on the model that you choose, but always under $300. And like I've said a million times on this show, that's kind of like the line for me. Once a rod price starts with a 3, whoa boy, I better be in love with that rod if I'm going to buy it. That is a price point where I really start watching things like, the Rod Locker's used page for a rod that I'm looking for if it's in that price range, because I have a really hard time paying over $300 for a rod. So at $260-ish, especially in today's day and age, it's a very competitive price point for a high-end rod. And then number 3 is its performance. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. I did an episode way back where we talked about this Zodius, but I think that was still relatively early on in my time with this rod. I'd have to go back and listen, but I think that I probably did that episode maybe 6 months or so after having this rod and using it hard. That would be my guess. But now I'm well into 2+ years or more with these rods. So I will go through some of my thoughts overall about the Zodius lineup before we get some major news about how you could get quite possibly the deal of the century on these rods. So my experience with the Shimano Zodius A, I guess I'll call it. I'm not sure if they really call it the Zodius A, but I do know that the version that's coming out now is called the Zodius B. So I'm going to call this the Zodius A for the time being. I don't know if that's officially what they've now referred to it as or not, but the generation of Zodius that we have known for the past like 5 or 6 years is what I'm talking about, not the brand new ones that are going to hit the market anytime now. The current ones that if you've had a Zodius over the past 5 years, it's the Zodius that you've had. With that rod, my experience with those rods has overall been a net positive for sure. So I'll start there right off the bat. I have had 2 of these that I've rotated through over the last few years, one spinning, one casting. And I really think this becomes like a top 3 rod in that price range, especially with all of the price increases that we've seen pretty recently. And I actually checked with Brian over at the Rod Locker to see if the market agrees, because sales are king at the end of the day. And when you look at sales of this rod compared to other rods in the price range, the market does agree. It sounds like the Zodius, this Zodius in particular, this previous generation Zodius, is either number 1 or number 2 in terms of volume of sales in this price range. It sounds like it's kind of a 2-horse race between the Zodius and the Dobyns Champ XP in terms of sales volume. Now, I think I can speak to this a little bit, having used both of these rods quite a bit. Those are 2 very different product lines and different families of rod. Same price point-ish, right? But very, very different feeling rods. The Champ XP from Dobyns is a timeless, some might even venture into the old school, even though that's not the right term to use for it, kind of feeling line of rods. A lot of full cork handles, some split grip, but Gary loves his full cork handles, so you see that as an option throughout both casting and spinning rods in the Champ XP lineup. The Champ XP has a lot less frills, it's less eye-catching, but it's a solid rod that has stood the test of time with very, very little changes to that rod since its inception. On the other hand, you have the Shimano Zodius, and the Zodius is basically everything that the Champ XP is not in terms of look and feel especially. The Zodius is sharp, it's sleek, it's modern. I compare it to like cars, I guess. The Champ XP is like the Honda Civic. Its reliability and its dependability are second to none. It gets the job done. It does what it was built to do without all of the frills and bells and whistles of other cars in that same size. It's built to do a job, and it does it better and more efficiently than almost any other option out there. The Zodius is a Porsche. It's a sports car. It's sleek. It looks incredible, but also importantly, it's still built for performance and durability. It's not a car that simply trades looks for reliability. It does them both very well. So the Zodius looks like the sports car equivalent of a fishing rod. From the handle design for that monocoque carbon handle, that whole handle system is very light, very sensitive. It's been trickled down from a lot more expensive Shimano rods, so that's one of the reasons why. Then you have that CI4 Plus reel seat, which is my favorite reel seat in the world. I mean, you see similar CI4 Plus seats on things like a G Loomis NRX Plus or, GLXs, and you see them on those rods for a reason. You also get Shimano's High Power X technology in that rod blank. It's just a killer looking and functional rod at the end of the day. And a lot of times when you trade something like looks for performance, you worry about durability. Durability has not been an issue with this rod whatsoever, either of the two that I've owned since I bought them. And I actually thought with it being a little bit lighter of a rod family, which again is a good thing in the hand, but I thought maybe it might have some durability issues down the road, or at least push it to its limits the way that I fish a lot of times. But I have not had a single issue with either of my two Zodiuses that I've owned long term. So no reservations there in terms of durability. But as far as performance out on the water goes, I think this rod is very sensitive for the money. I'll start there. If you want to draw a comparison to the Champ XP, again, I think the Zodius is more sensitive than the Champ XP. I wish there was like an objective way to test that, but I'm just a dude that likes to go fishing. So all I really have to go off of is my side-by-side kind of analysis when I'm out there fishing. The Zodius feels more sensitive to me than the Champ XP straight up and down. Side-by-side, the Zodius is also lighter in the hand. Now, we've talked about weight versus balance before. Just because a rod feels lighter in your hand doesn't automatically mean it's better. It's all about balance. So it all depends at the end of the day to what reel you put on that rod. But balance-wise, I'm very happy with my two Zodiuses as well. I've got my 7-foot medium spinning rod, and I've got my 7.2 heavy casting rod. Those are the two models that I've kept long-term. So it's sensitive, it's light, it's durable, plus for the Zodius in those categories. Now, if I had to nitpick and find some negatives here, because it's a lighter rod, especially when you get into your mediums or your medium heavies, even a little bit, you can feel that this rod is a little bit whippier than some other rods out there. And a lot of times that can be a good thing. I don't mean for that to be like an across the board negative. For instance, my spinning rod that I have that's a Zodius, I love that it's whippier than my Daiwas or my Dobbins. It makes it an awesome rod for like all around finesse fishing. And then at the high end, you go up to like your heavies and up, there's still plenty strong and there's plenty of backbone there to frog with or to handle slop. So don't worry about that on like the high end of these rods. But the way that they load up is going to feel different than a 6-power Dobbins. It just is. And I think that's good. I think that's a fun part about fishing gear. I want different rods from different companies to feel different. If every rod from every company felt exactly the same, then fishing gear would be very boring, number one, and Tackle Talk probably would have lasted about 3 episodes. The other tiny complaint that I might have, and again, this one is very nitpicky because I'm going to tell you why it's not that big of a deal in a second, is that this rod comes with those Fuji Alkanite K semi-micro guides, I think is what they call them. They're pretty sweet guides, no issues with popping out or breaking or anything like that, but they are a smaller diameter than a lot of other rods out there. Some people love micro guides, some people hate them, but the good news here is that these eyelets are kind of right in between. They're smaller than regular guides, but they're not true micro guides, so you don't have any trouble with knots passing through them. I don't have any issues with my leaders or anything on these rods. So I think it's just more of a mental thing for me than anything else. But I do know that there are people, and a lot of times I fall into that camp where I'm just not a giant fan of micro guides. But overall, the Zodius rods are insanely popular. They're at a great price point for someone looking for a mid to high-end rod that honestly looks like it should cost twice what it does from probably the most reputable company in fishing, period. And that brings us to our last piece here, which is price. This rod, as I mentioned before, normally retails for anywhere from $260 to $280 with a few super heavy rods coming in at that like $290 or something price point, depending on what model you pick, because bigger, heavier models usually go for like $10 to $20 more because just a beefier rod, beefier blank. You see that with a lot of different brands. But overall, $260 to $280, we'll call this, is an awesome price for these rods by themselves. After using them for a long time, I do think they are worth that price, but I'm not going to leave you guys hanging and paying retail pricing for these rods. I have a screaming deal for you guys if you want to pick one of these up or two, wink, wink, nod, nod, because the folks over at the Rod Locker have hooked us up with an incredible deal because, as I mentioned at the kind of top of this show, the Zodius B rods are about to come out, the newest version of these rods. I have not used them. I have no experience with them. I don't know. What I do have experience with is this old version of Zodius. And because the new ones are coming, that means you have the chance right now to get the deal of a lifetime on the previous generation Zodiuses that we've been using for the past 5-6 years, which has been the subject of everything we've talked about so far for the past like 15 or 20 minutes. So Brian, Chad, and the whole crew over at the Rod Locker are going to offer buy one, get one free Shimano Zodius rods. The previous generation, regular Zodius, buy one, get one free. Casting and spinning, they just got a ton in stock. They are all buy one, get one free. Now, the only thing that we have to add on here is because of their cost and because the margin is so low running this sale that they can't do free shipping. So you're going to have to pay shipping for these rods, but it's $35 flat rate for your buy one, get one. And the good news is with that $35, they're going to ship FedEx, so not USPS. They're not going to arrive in 3 pieces like USPS loves to do sometimes. And they're going to ship them in premium PVC rod tubes, not cardboard, not corrugated, hardcore PVC tubes. Your rods will show up immaculate. So premium shipping on your Zodius rods through this deal as well. So let's do some math here, right? Because I'm one of those guys that loves to know the actual deal. What am I paying? I don't like hiding the ball from anybody. So let's actually break down some numbers. If you buy 2 $259 Zodius rods, I'm going to add them to my cart right now. With shipping, I am looking at a total of $304.99. Total. Whole order, no questions asked. And that is for 2 Zodius rods. So if you divide that up, even including the shipping and everything, you are paying $152 all in per rod. That is stupid. I have no other words. I don't know how to describe this. That is blasphemy. For reference, a Dobyns Fury is $150 now. So you're getting a Shimano Zodius for the price of a Dobyns Fury. That is madness. That is twice the rod, twice the price normally. You are getting it for the same price as a Dobyns Fury. So this is a real deal. I'm looking at it right now in my cart, $304.99 for 2 Shimano Zodiuses with shipping, everything included, $150 a rod. Dumb. So here's the thing. This deal will sell out fast. It will go fast. There's almost no world where it doesn't go quickly. So I would act fast if you want to jump on this. To get to this deal, you just go to rodlocker.com, add any 2 Shimano Zodius rods to your cart. Now, again, make sure they're regular Zodius rods. They can't be the Zodius B because those are the new versions that will be available soon. Those have already been added to the website just so people can start to look at them, but they're on back order. You can't actually get them yet. So an easy way to make sure that you're looking at the right rods is to go to the search box at the top, type in Zodius and then a space, and then type in the minus sign and the letter B. And make sure that the minus sign and the letter B are together. So it looks like negative B, basically. No space in between the negative sign and the B, because what that will do will exclude any listings that use the letter B in them. So basically what you're doing is you're filtering out all of the Zodius B rods, and what's left is the regular Zodiuses that qualify for this buy one, get one free deal. So they're going to be the ones that when you see in the little picture that have the red accents on the butt section and the real seat screw nut, not the all black versions that say Zodius B, the regular Zodiuses that we've seen and used for the past couple years. And if you add any 2 Zodiuses to your cart, that deal will automatically apply and you're good to go. The other thing is you can't use the Tackle Talk code on this deal specifically because, like I said, the margins just are what they are. So they're already giving you a silly, silly deal. So no other coupon codes or anything are going to work for this specific one. But that is the deal that you're going to get through the Rod Locker right now. Buy one, get one free Shimano Zodiuses. If you have any trouble, DM me, email me, tackletalkpodcast@gmail.com. I'll be happy to help you out. I just want to see you guys save money, and this deal is too nuts to pass up and not tell you guys about. So again, act fast before they're gone. Buy one, get one free Shimano Zodiuses over at the Rod Locker going on right now. All right, everybody, let's keep moving here. We are going to jump to this week's fishing poll here in just a second. But first, the Tackle Talk podcast and the fishing poll are brought to you in part by Hummingbird and Minn Kota, because as many of you know, Hummingbird and Minn Kota are 2 brands that were optimized to work with each other seamlessly. So for instance, did you know that there is a feature called Backtrack where you can actually tell your Minn Kota trolling motor to automatically retrace up to 2 miles of your most recent course that you've logged on your Hummingbird unit? So if I just spent an hour going up and down this bank line and meticulously guiding that trolling motor back down like a contour line, I can tell my Minn Kota trolling motor to automatically backtrack and go through that same route in reverse. Or you can do something like the Go To feature on your Minn Kota trolling motor that will automatically go back to any spot lock or eye track that you have that you want to return to. All of that is through their advanced GPS integration between Hummingbird and Minn Kota. Hummingbird and Minn Kota go together like peanut butter and jelly. They are quite literally designed and optimized to work in sync. There are a ton of other features like being able to follow contour lines automatically. There's circle mode. You can even control your Minn Kota trolling motor speed and your steering with a compatible Hummingbird unit. You've also got locked course autopilot, locked heading autopilot, eye tracks, Hummingbird virtual remote, and so much more. So with all of the benefits that each of these brands have on their own, Hummingbird with incredibly detailed sonar and imaging, and Minn Kota with reliable trolling motors, they're even better together. So for more information, you can head over to hummingbird.com or minnkotamotors.com today.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast Fishing Pole. Brought to you by Hummingbird. Explore more at hummingbird.com.
Okay, everybody, in this week's fishing poll, I wanted to hit you guys with a question that felt pretty topical after, a week or two ago, the whole fishing world was blasted with the new Berkley Lab Series line of baits, where a huge component of those baits is scent and scent trail and all of that. And if you know Berkley, you know that the scent and the taste are a huge calling card of theirs with their gulp formula, power bait, max scent. All of those are huge sellers in the tackle world, and a giant emphasis is put on scent. Well, with this new lab series, which we'll talk about more at a later date, not today, it raises the question once again, just how important is scent? I mean, Dylan Nutt won the Bassmaster Classic on a highly scented lab series bait. We've seen the fishing world bombarded with different scents and formulas over the years. You've got everything from Strike King's coffee scent through the Rage series. You've got Bait Fuel, Bang, Jack's Juice, the Spike It garlic dye. More recently, you have Nori's Bite powder. So many options for scent, whether it be included with your bait, like net baits soaking their baits in bait fuel and infusing them in the package, or Berkley with their gulp or power bait or max scent, or just an additive that you doctor on at a later date. Well, either way, a ton of time, a ton of effort, and a ton of money and marketing have been poured into the scent side of fishing recently. But the question is, do you buy it? Both figuratively and literally, I guess, in this case. Do you care? Because I feel like here at Tackle Talk, we do have a pretty straight down the middle, no BS listener base that represents the common angler pretty darn well. We're good anglers, but most of us aren't pros. We spend a ton of money on fishing gear, but we're also pretty frugal. We like what we like. We don't like what we don't like. We are just regular Joes at the end of the day. Well, I want to know if the regular Joe or Josie, I guess, for you ladies listening as well, actually care about fishing scent. Do you prefer scent on your soft plastics? That is our fishing poll question this week. And my answer is no. I don't prefer scent. Now, do I actively avoid scented baits? No, I don't. I'm fine with there being scent, but I don't actively seek it out. I look at scent as something that probably doesn't hurt to have, but I'm not convinced that it helps me a ton. Like I said, I don't seek out scented soft plastics, but some of my favorite soft plastics do have scent, but that's not why I buy them. I buy them for their action, for their durability, price, size. So many other characteristics are important to me. Scent is, honest to goodness, one of the last things that I think about. So if my soft plastic decision was like a pie chart, then probably like 1% to 2% of my decision-making process is taken up by scent. And a lot of times, I think I might actually be less likely to buy a heavily scented bait because I absolutely hate that slimy, wet feeling of those soaked soft plastics. It makes rigging them a pain. You get that crap everywhere. I don't like it. Just give me regular, dry, boring soft plastics. I know that there are biologists out there that probably would say I am dead wrong, and scientifically I probably am. I don't know, but I'm just being honest about how I buy my fishing gear. I grew up throwing regular, dry, soft plastics, and I still prefer them to this day. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't care about scent because it probably makes a difference. I'm just telling you most of the time, me personally, I don't really worry about it too much. But I am very excited to see what you all had to say here because a lot of times I feel like I'm in the minority here. I feel like everybody cares about scent and it's the cool thing out there. There are brands that have upped their scent game completely over the past couple years. But I'm curious to see if I feel like an outsider just because these companies are pushing scent so much more and more, or if the general public and tackle consumer really cares about it more than I do. I don't know. So there is one way to find out, though. Let's open up these results and I will tell you what you all think. And the answer to, do you prefer scent on your soft plastics, is very, very close. Okay, so 53% of you said yes, you do prefer scent. 47% said no. So almost a dead split amongst Tackle Talk listeners. That's interesting. I honestly thought this would be more like 60% of you plus would say yes, you prefer scent. Now, I don't know how much of that has to do with the fact that you guys listen to this show and you know that I don't care much about scent. I know I have mentioned that many times before. Maybe I've just infected your brains and brainwashed you to turn against the big scent industry out there. I don't know, but almost a dead split. 53% of you do prefer scented soft plastics. 47% do not. Okay, everybody. And finally, we're going to get to the mailbag here in just a second. But first, before we do, the Tackle Talk podcast and the mailbag are powered by Amped Outdoors. And Amped Outdoors is an industry leader in lithium batteries engineered and built for all types of marine applications. Trolling motors, graphs, live sonar, ice fishing, kayak motors, you name it, Amped has a battery for you. I am currently running a 24-volt 50 amp hour amped lithium battery for my kayak motor and then a 12-volt 30 amp hour for all of my electronics. And I have yet to even remotely kill either of those batteries out on the water with a full, hard, like 12 to 14 hour day. That's what you get with Amped Outdoors. You get the highest quality components. You get waterproof case designs so they're ready for anything that Mother Nature can throw at them. You get Bluetooth connectivity so you know when your battery is charging, when it's fully charged, and how much battery you have left out in the water, as long as that battery is one of their qualifying Bluetooth batteries that are usually like the 50 amp hour and up. Same thing with heated charging. You get heated charging standard with their batteries as long as that battery is 50 amp hours and up so that you can charge your battery in any weather conditions. Plus, you get a 10-year no-gimmick warranty and world-class customer support, not based halfway around the world, not from some private equity company, a great family-owned business right there in Hudson, Wisconsin. So you can head over to www.ampedoutdoors.com today and power your passion with Amped.
This is the Tackle Talk podcast mailbag, powered by Amped Outdoors, your source for premium, affordable lithium batteries.
All right, our first question here is from John, who says, "What's up, my guy? I'm coming out of winter and my rods and reels tend to get a little dusty from sitting in the corner and not being used. What do you do to clean the dust off? Do you just wipe them down, or is there some kind of special cleaner that you like to use? Or do you just say screw it and just get out there?" John, good question. I just did this maybe like 3 weeks ago, so I was in the same boat as you. I do use my gear all winter long, but some of it sits more than others, and since it's in the garage, and now instead of, fishing every 3 days, maybe I fish every 7 days or something, and that gear does start to get kind of gross. Also, when it's cold outside, it's just a great time to take all of that gear inside and start working on it when you get cabin fever. So yeah, I did just go in and clean all of my reels right there in late winter. And for me, the first thing I do is I use water, just regular old water. I get a wet rag and then I go over the entire rod and the entire outside of that reel with a damp rag. So we're not talking a lot of water. You don't want to soak this thing, just enough to get that rag damp enough to get all of that gunk off. The nice part about both rods and reels is they're pretty smooth surfaces, so dirt and mud comes off of them surprisingly easy. You'll find that you don't really need a whole lot of crazy chemicals or something to get all of this dirt and gunk and everything off of your rods and reels. But then after that, I take a Q-tip and I dunk one end of that Q-tip in water, and then I use that to get into all of the tough to reach places, especially like eyelets on your rods. I go through the inside and the outside of those inserts, everything with a Q-tip just to get everything out of there in those tiny little crevices. And then I let those rods and reels dry, and then I go back and I do the exact same thing again, but instead of water, I use some sort of cleaner. Now, I'll tell you what cleaner that I use here in a second, but you can just use watered down general all-purpose cleaner too, like anything you get at any store, like what you would use to clean your countertop or your floor or whatever, just all-purpose cleaner. And I just do that with that rag and that Q-tip once again. And then lastly, for reels, I oil and grease them. all of your bearings, your worm shaft, all that good stuff. And then voila, that crusty reel or rod looks like $1 million again. That's all you have to do, in my opinion. Now, as far as what I specifically use, like in terms of my cleaner and my oil and my grease and everything, I actually use the Ardent reel cleaning kit. It's just a trio of reel butter, like REEL butter is what they call their like formula there. So reel butter grease, then you have reel butter oil, and then you have all-purpose cleaner. So that kit has everything that you need. It's like $13. It's not bad at all. It makes it super easy. And I know because I will get questions about it. If you go to the show notes of today's episode, I will drop the link to that exact trio that I use so that you can buy it really easily. I'll put the Amazon link to the exact kit, and it's like $13 on Amazon, free shipping. Just get that and be done with it. So that link will be in the show notes today. If you swipe up or whatever podcast platform you're listening, if you go to the description of today's episode, I will put that Amazon link right there. Okay, next question here is from Nick, who says, "Hey, Andrew, I want to get into frog fishing this year, and I was wondering when you prefer to throw a walking frog over a popping frog. Also, do you have any recommendations for a good reel in the $150 range? I'm thinking of the Tatula X or the SLX XT, but I'm not sure if they both have large enough spools if I'm using 65-pound braid. Thanks, Nick." Nick, I used to use a popping frog a lot more than I do now. So if you go back and listen to old Tackle Talk episodes, I threw a popping frog almost all of the time. Like I very, very rarely threw a regular frog. Now, the last probably 2 years, I've thrown a regular frog a lot more than I've thrown a popping frog. And it's been kind of nice because now I feel like I'm really, really good with both of them versus sometimes my brain just wants to stay in my little lane and throw the thing that I know works all the time. But when I've put this time in with a regular frog, I just think they walk better. I think they are a little bit more finessey, which I know sounds stupid when you're talking about frog fishing, but they come through the weeds a little bit better. You can finesse them around and on those pads a little better. I just feel like right now, if I go out, my split is probably 65% regular frog, 35% popping frog. Popping frogs are great for way more open water when you have way more sparse vegetation. You have bigger spaces in between lily pads or whatever it may be. I feel like a popping frog can draw in fish from a little farther away. But when you are around that nasty stuff, a regular frog, not the popping version, is awesome. So either way, no matter which one you're going to buy, I would just save yourself some headache. I would go get some Booyah pad crashers because you can get a regular and a popping model for the same price as just one frog from a lot of other companies. Now, as far as the reel goes, they're both fairly similar reels. They have the same general capacity. They have the exact same max drag. I would guess that you can probably get maybe 90 to 100 yards of frog and braid on either of those reels. And I think that's plenty. Heck, even if you only got like 75 or 80 yards on there, you're not casting a football field across when you're casting a frog. You're casting like half of that or a third of that, maybe at the most. So no, I don't think that you need to really worry too much about, I need like a 300 size spool or something. You'll be fine with either of those. The only thing you worry about really with frogging reels, I think, is just their durability, because you are going to beat the snot out of this reel. You're going to put the gearing and the drag to the test. You are going to abuse this reel. So I would just go with whichever one I think is going to hold up longer. For me, I would probably go the SLX XT. The Daiwa is a tad lighter. I think it's like 0.3 ounces lighter than the SLX XT is, but I think the XT will hold up just a little better in the long run. All right, the next question here is from John. So we got another John, 2 Johns in the first 3 questions. The question says, "Hey, Andrew, love the show. I have sort of a 2-part question here. I recently purchased a Dobyns Champion XP 796 SB off of Facebook for $200. I intend on using this as a swim bait rod, but I also wondered if it could work for something like deep cranking. The other question I have is that I have yet to purchase a reel for this rod, and I'm looking at used Daiwa Tatula 300s or Shimano Tranxes, but I can't find anything in that 225-ish range. I was wondering if you knew of any cheaper 300 size reels that I could use for this setup." Okay, so first off, the 796 SB, congratulations. You got a good deal on that for $200. That's a great swim bait reel for sure. I know a lot of people throw like mag drafts or harnessed swim baits, whatever you want to call them, or like small to mid-sized glides on that rod for sure. I know a lot of people use it for Alabama rigs, but for deep cranking, I mean, I guess you probably could, right? I'm not going to say that you can't, but I would be worried about that rod being just a little too stiff and fast for my deep cranks. I have not gone out and deep cranked with that rod, so I do not know for sure, but that would be my only reservation. But for you, you already have that rod. There is one way to find out, which is go out there and try and deep crank. And honestly, let me know how it goes, because I would be interested to see if something like a, DT16 or something, how it feels on that rod. And then as far as your question for the reels go, yeah, the Tranx is the gold standard, but they are pricey. 300 size reels in general are pricey. Now, the 300 size that I have is a slightly cheaper one. I use the Daiwa Lexa. It's held up pretty well. I've only used it for musky fishing. And again, I have beat the tar out of it because you're casting, 12-ounce lures and all of that stuff around for hours and hours at a time. So I can at least attest to its durability overall in terms of like not breaking on me. It's not a Tranx. It doesn't feel like a Tranx. It's not quite as smooth as a Tranx, but you're also going to pay over $100 less for a Lexa versus a Tranx. So if you're looking for that, mid 200s-ish price range, I would look at the Daiwa Lexa. There's also a new version from the one that I have. If you can find the one that I have, it's from maybe 5 to 10 years ago. It's blue, and it's got these kind of like blue, not quite wind grip, but kind of wind grip looking handles on it. Now they look a whole lot sleeker. They're way more dark, almost black all the way through. I would be really curious to try the new version of the Daiwa Lexa. I just have the old one, but yeah, I can attest that it has held up the test of time and is a good investment in that kind of like mid $200 range. All right, and our last question here is from Gina, who says, last fall, I caught my first muskie on a Berkeley Chapo 120 in bone and landed it on my frogging combo. My frogging and punching setup is the same as yours, the Dobbin 735C with a Tatula 150. Obviously, it kind of changed my life, and now I'm interested in targeting muskie, but I'm like you, cheap by nature, and I do not want to go down what seems like a very expensive gear rabbit hole. My question is, can I just throw bigger bass setups for muskie? Or should I bite the bullet and invest in a dedicated muskie combo? Well, here we go, right? Staying with the big fish, big gear train here. I like it. Congratulations on your first muskie. And all I'll say is welcome to the addiction. You experienced what all muskie anglers experience at some point, which is that first hit of the drug, your first fish or your first encounter with those fish. And yours sounds like it might have even been on accident. I don't know if you were fishing for muskie with that Chapo or you just caught one by accident. But either way, your first muskie will change you for sure. And yeah, I can relate pretty well to what you're going through. Now, you want to dip your toe into the muskie world, and you have hit the nail on the head, which is it is a very expensive world to jump into. Very expensive. If you make a lure that's worth $10 and it's a bass bait, and then you make that exact same lure and then you write muskie on the package, that is now a $40 bait. That's just how the world works. It's insanity. Muskie gear is so expensive. So I do like your frugal approach here, asking if you can just throw big bass baits and essentially your frogging setup. Yes, you can. Obviously, from experience, you caught your muskie on that setup exactly like you're saying. So you kind of answered your own question there. Yes, you can do it, but the question becomes, should you do it? And that's up for a little bit more debate, not because of the success or lack of success that you'll have targeting those fish with bass gear, but because of the safety of the muskie themselves. We fish for muskie on super heavy rods, with super heavy line, big baits, and giant nets because our goal is to get that fish in the net as quickly as possible when you hook one. The quicker you net that fish, the less lactic acid that builds up in that fish during the fight, the less you wear that fish out and you stress that fish out, and the more likely it is to swim away healthy and survive long term. Muskie are vicious fish, and they show that during their fight, but they're also delicate when it comes to dealing with, the stress of being caught and delayed mortality and all that kind of stuff. So I would say, yes, you can fish with what you have, but if you're serious in targeting muskie from here on out, and it's something that you're actually going to set out to do, it would be worth investing in at least one muskie setup. You can build a good all-around muskie setup for like $300 if you look around. The Daiwa Pro Rex rods they just came out with for $99 are an awesome starter muskie rod. And then you can get a used 300 reel that we kind of talked about in, the question before. You can probably find a used, 300-ish size reel, maybe even a 200 size if you really have to, for, like a couple $100 maybe. And then you have a killer muskie setup for like $300. So I can't with a good conscience not advise that you try to make a dedicated musky setup, it'll be better for you in the long run. For casting, for control, for figure eighting right there at the boat, for fighting those fish, that bigger rod is so important. And at the end of the day, it'll be better for the fish too. So that would be my answer. All right, everybody, that is our episode today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you that takes the time to listen to Tackle Talk every week. If you have any questions, anything I can help with, shoot me an email, tackletalkpodcast@gmail.com. You can shoot me a DM on Instagram or Facebook at Tackle Talk Podcast. Go find us on the web, tackletalkpodcast.com. There you can submit a mailbag question. You can participate in the fishing poll, all that good stuff. And we'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk Podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2019. For more, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.